Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and it is time for the April tag. So, April is a less busy month for holidays and observances than March was. And yet, it has some very interesting days in it. So let's do the monthly and or weekly celebrations first. And first up is National Library Week, which is the 7th through the 13th of April, which I believe corresponds to Holy Week this year. It does. And that brings us to the obvious. And a lot of these overlap, so forgive me. So World Music Therapy Week is also in April, and that is the 10th to the 15th. And then you get Palm Sunday, which, correction, National Library Week is the week before Holy Week. Palm Sunday is the 13th, and that makes Easter the 20th. And I do have a book recommendation that is very specific to Holy Week. I am currently reading it on my Kindle. Obviously before Holy Week, since I'm filming this the 26th of March. That is The Robe by Lloyd C. Webber. This is actually a classic. If I remember correctly, he was a pastor, and it's historical fiction, and it tells the story of one of the Roman soldiers who was gambling at the foot of Christ's cross. I will tell you, it is very worth picking up. I own it on Kindle. There is a copy in my library bookshop that I didn't pick up last time I was there. I'm going back to see if I can pick it up. The book starts off very slow, and you're unsure about what it is you're reading. All I will say is that give it a chance. Once it begins to pick up, you understand where it is going. And at the point where I'm at, and I'm reading it slowly so that I probably finish it during Holy Week, Palm Sunday has just happened in Jerusalem. However, the book opens up in Rome. And in the beginning, you have trouble seeing the connection. So that is definitely my recommendation. Even though I haven't finished it, I am enjoying it. It is not Catholic fiction. It is definitely just a classic. It happens to be written by a pastor, but I cannot talk about the faith content because I haven't gotten to any faith content in the book yet. So, okay. And then you have Passover week, which is the 12th through the 20th. So Passover and Holy Week correspond this year. And that concludes all of the monthly and or weekly celebrations for April that I noted. So now for the daily celebrations. First up would be the 2nd of April, and that is World Autism Awareness Day. And I do have some recommendations for this in particular. And the first up, and I've read, I believe, one of the books I'm about to talk about. So, first up is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This is 390 pages, and it has a autistic protagonist, and I will read you the description. Meet Eleanor Oliphant. She struggles with appropriate social skills and tends to say exactly what she's thinking. Nothing is missing in her carefully timetabled life of avoiding social interactions, where weekends are punctuated by frozen pizza, vodka, and phone chats with Mummy. But everything changes when Eleanor meets Raymond, the bumbling and deeply unhygienic IT guy from her office. When she and Raymond together save Sammy, an elderly gentleman who has fallen on a sidewalk, the three become the kinds of friends who rescue one another from the lives of isolation they have each been living. And it is Raymond's big heart that will ultimately help Eleanor find the way to repair her own profoundly damaged one. I think it sounds fantastic, and I am looking forward to that. Okay, so next up is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. By the time this comes out, you probably won't have seen it yet. I did DNF my first ever Frederick Bachman book. However, I want to give this one a chance. I'm going to link down below the videos from Christina, who is Alan's wife from Library of Alexandria. And she reads this book and recognizes her husband in it. And Alan is sometimes, you know how sometimes you need a completely unconnected to you source to recognize things that are going on in your own life? Alan, for me, is that source. Alan, at one point on his channel, and I will try and find the video, but if I can't, please forgive me, it is on Alan's channel somewhere. Alan talks about his autism. And when Alan had that conversation on his channel, I recognized my own husband. And we had been married for a very long time at this point. And I finally got a lot of things. And I am deeply, deeply grateful to Alan for that. And Christina's videos, she had three, where she secretly took over Alan's channel for this book. So I want to read this book. So I will read you the blurb. A grumpy yet lovable man finds his solitary world turned on its head when a boisterous young family moves in next door. Meet Ove. He's a curmudgeon, the kind of man who points at people he dislikes as if they were burglars caught outside his bedroom window. He has staunch principles, strict routines, and a short fuse. People call him the bitter neighbor from hell. But must Ove be bitter just because he doesn't walk around with a smile plastered to his face all of the time? Behind the cranky exterior, there is a story and a sadness. So when one November morning, a chatty young couple with two chatty young daughters move in next door and accidentally flatten Ove's mailbox, it is the lead-in to a comical and heartwarming tale of unkempt cats, unexpected friendship, and the ancient art of backing up a U-Haul. All of which will change one cranky old man and a local residents association to their very foundations. So, when I find a copy, I will read it. Okay, so the last book for this, the 2nd of April, is one I have read, and I did not recognize that she was on the spectrum when I read this book. I read it, I believe we were on a plane to Mexico. So that is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. This is the first book in the Millennium series. It has been continued since the original author's death. And if you do not like swearing in your books, if uncomfortable situations, make you uncomfortable, I do not recommend this series. However, if you like Nordic thrillers, I highly recommend this series. I don't recommend the movie. I do recommend the book, however. I'll read you the blurb. Harriet Vanger, a scion of one of Sweden's wealthiest families, disappeared over 40 years ago. All these years later, her aged uncle continues to seek the truth. He hires Mikael Blomkvist, a crusading journalist, recently trapped by a libel conviction, to investigate. He is aided by the pierced and tattooed punk prodigy Lisbeth Salander. Together, they tap into a vein of unfathomable inequity and astonishing corruption. The book is fantastic. It is filled, however, with Swedish names and places, and I highly recommend reading this book, not necessarily listening to this book, but it is fantastic. Next up is the 5th of April, and that is National Walking Day. And I have one recommendation for this. It has been on my list for a very long time, and I have not yet picked up a copy. That is Walking the Bible, A Journey by Land Through the 5 Books of Moses by Bruce Feiler. And I will read you the blurb. Both a heart-racing adventure and an uplifting quest, Walking the Bible describes one man's epic odyssey by foot, jeep, rowboat, and camel through the greatest stories ever told. From crossing the Red Sea to climbing Mount Sinai to touching the burning bush, Bruce Feiler's inspiring journey will forever change your view of some of history's most storied events. This is one of those books I want to get my hands on physically, and I haven't ordered it yet, but it has been on my radar for a very long time. Okay, up next is April 11th, which is National Pet Day. And, well, as you know, we have many. And I think every life is enriched by a pet, especially every child's life. They teach many lessons in life that are not easily learned without a pet, in my personal experience and opinion. And I could have grabbed a bunch of books with pets in them, but I talk about those all the time. So I just want to say that if you are interested in getting a pet, please look at your local shelter. Use petfinder.org, which will list pets by type, species near you at shelters, and it is a great way to find a pet. Of the 3 dogs sitting here, 2 are shelters. And 1 is not. And there were very specific reasons that she was not. So, okay. And that brings us to the 13th of April, which is Celebrate Teen Literature Day. And we all know I don't read a lot of teen literature, but I do have 2 recommendations for this. First up would be a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain. I got this lovely copy from my library. And does it say when it's originally published? Yep, 1889. And my copy is under 350 pages. And it's a beautiful edition, so I do not remember reading this, but I do remember watching it. So I want to say there's a movie, I bought a copy so I could read it. So someday I will pull that up. And then the next recommendation would be Aragon by Christopher Paolini. This is the first book in the Inheritance series. I read this last year. I am supposed to read Eldest this year. And this is teen fantasy. Our protagonist is a 16-year-old boy. The first book was completely clean. It was completely swear-free. There is no nonsense. I absolutely adored this book. Go read them. It was fantastic. Okay. What is next? Next up would be the 18th of April, which is Adult Autism Awareness Day. Yes, that's right. There are two autism days in April. And I have a bunch of recommendations for this. So let me scroll on back here. Okay. First up, I have not read any of these, by the way. But, a little research brings up books. That would be Catherine in the Wind by Amanda Gale, and I will read you the description. Catherine Shearing has found the man of her dreams in rising political star Wes Bickhart. The problem is, Wes has a past, in the form of Meredith Kelly, the woman he almost married and who remains an important part of his life. Catherine has her own reasons for questioning Wes's continued friendship with Meredith. As a person on the autism spectrum, Catherine has missed signals before. And though she desperately loves him, part of her wonders if she should retreat into her quiet life rather than risk being hurt again. After years of personal struggles of her own, Meredith Kelly thought her life was finally perfect, with a wonderful, adoring husband and a growing family. But when her dying father, a famously irascible journalist and political kingmaker, requests her help with drafting his memoir, she is brought face to face with their difficult relationship and with their family's haunted past. As his demands become more troubling, her life grows more chaotic, and the one person who can help her is her politically ambitious ex, Wes Bickhart. Now both women are put to the test as they balance their seemingly idyllic lives with their mutual uncertainty about where Wes's heart really lies. Easily read as a standalone novel or as an extension of Amanda Gale's Meredith series, Catherine and the Wind is a tale of human frailty and fear, of growth and redemption, of the bonds between women, and of the sacrifices we make for the people we love most. It is 493 pages, and I think it sounds incredibly interesting. Okay, next up, this book has been on my list for a while. That is The Dentist by Tim Sullivan. It is the first in the DS Cross mystery series, and I will read you the back. A homeless man, violently strangled, no leads, except for his past. An outsider himself, D.S. George Cross is drawn to this case. The discovery of the dead man's connection to an old cold case then pulls Cross in further. Convinced this is where the answer to the murder lies, he sets about solving another that someone has spent the past 15 years thinking they've gotten away with. That is a very awkward sentence, and it should say he sets about solving a murder that someone has spent the past 15 years thinking they've gotten away with. Cross's relentless obsession with logic, detail, and patterns is what makes him so irritatingly brilliant. I can so relate to that statement. It doesn't exactly make him popular with colleagues or his superiors, though. He has numerous enemies in the force waiting to see him fail. Red flags are soon raised as suspicious inconsistencies and errors in the original detective's investigation come to light. Now retired, this ex-cop has powerful friends in the force and a long-standing dislike of Cross. Set in picturesque Bristol in the southwest of England, it is not long before the city reveals its dark underbelly in a case of intriguing twists and turns whose result astonishes even those involved. Difficult and awkward, maybe. But Cross is the best conviction rate in Avon and Somerset police. By far. Will this case put an end to that? Just from the description alone, I recognize the autism in the protagonist. And I am very fascinated by that book. Okay, up next. Another one I haven't read, but I'm interested in. That is The Rosie Project by Graham Simpson. Simpson. Name right there. It is the first in the Don Tillman series. And I will read you the blurb. An international sensation, this hilarious feel-good novel is narrated, this is obviously the audio version, by an oddly charming and socially challenged genetics professor on an unusual quest to find out if he is capable of true love. Don Tillman, professor of genetics, has never been on a second date. He is a man who can count all his friends on the fingers of one hand, whose lifelong difficulty with social rituals has convinced him that he is simply not wired for romance. So when an acquaintance informs him that he would make a wonderful husband, his first reaction is shock. Yet he must concede to the statistical probability that there is someone for everyone, and he embarks upon the wife project. In the orderly, evidence-based manner with which he approaches all things, Don sets out to find the perfect partner. She must be punctual and logical. Most definitely not a barmaid, a smoker, a drinker, or a late arriver. Yet Rosie Jarman is all of these things. She is also beguiling, fiery, intelligent, and a quest of her own. She is looking for her biological father, a search that a certain DNA expert might be able to help her with. Don's wife project takes a back burner to the father project, and an unlikely relationship blooms, forcing the scientifically minded geneticist to confront the spontaneous whirlwind that is Rosie, and the realization that love is not always what looks good on paper. Honestly, I just think it sounds fantastic, and I need to know. Okay, the next one that came up is a cozy mystery of all things. That is The Question of the Missing Head by E.J. Cooperman. It is the first in the Asperger's Mystery series, and I believe there are, looking up, 6 books in this series as of right now. I'll read you the description. Samuel Hoeing answers questions for a living, and as a man with Asperger's syndrome, his unique personality helps him ferret out almost any answer there is. But his latest question is a rather odd one. Who stole a preserved head from the Garden State Cryonics Institute? Arriving at the scene of the crime, accompanied by his new colleague, Miss Washburn, Samuel finds that what started out as a theft has escalated to murder. With suspects and motives emerging at a rapid rate, one final question remains. Can Samuel's powers of deduction uncover a killer in the face of overwhelming odds? Again, it sounds interesting. Okay. One last autism book, and this one is categorized as young adult. That is The Love Letters of Abelard and Lily. And it is by Laura Creedle. I will read you the description. When Lily Michaels Ryan ditches her ADHD meds and lands in detention with Abelard, who has Asperger's, she's intrigued. Abelard seems 30 seconds behind, while she feels 30 seconds ahead. It doesn't hurt that he's brilliant and beautiful. When Abelard posts a quote from the letters of Abelard and Heloise online, their mutual affinity for ancient love letters connects them. The two fall for each other hard. But is it enough to bridge their differences in person? This hilarious and heartbreaking story of human connection between two neurodivergent teens creates characters that will stay with you long after you finish reading. So, that concludes my autism recommendations in fiction. I need to pick up most of those. Dave has it. And there are times as a wife, it is very difficult to understand his perspective. So if a book helps me understand that, I'm all for it. Okay, next up is the 23rd of April, which is Shakespeare Day. And that's because that is also the day that Shakespeare died. And I have some recommendations for this day. Surprising, isn't it? That don't involve the bard himself. First up would be Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I need to read this book. I haven't picked it up yet. Drawing on Maggie O'Farrell's long-term fascination with the little-known story behind Shakespeare's most enigmatic play, Hamlet. Hamnet is a luminous portrait of a marriage, at its heart, the loss of a beloved child. Warwickshire in the 1580s. Agnes is a woman as feared as she is sought after for her unusual gifts. She settles with her husband in Henley Street, Stratford, and has 3 children, a daughter, Susanna, and twins, Hamnet and Judith. The boy Hamnet dies in 1596, age 11. 4 years or so later, the husband writes a play called Hamlet. Award-winning author Maggie O'Farrell's new novel breathes full-blooded life into the story of a loss usually consigned to literary footnotes and provides an unforgettable vindication of Agnes, a woman intriguingly absent from history. I need to read this book. I know my library has it. I just haven't picked it up. And I need to read it. Next up, I am almost positive I have this on Audible. That is Fools and Mortals by Bernard Cornwell. This too is historical fiction, and I will read you the back. New York Times best-selling author Bernard Cornwell makes a dramatic departure with his enthralling, action-packed standalone novel that tells the story of the first production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, as related by William Shakespeare's estranged younger brother. Lord, what fools these mortals be. In the heart of Elizabeth in England, Richard Shakespeare dreams of glittering career in one of the London playhouses, a world dominated by his older brother William. But he is a penniless actor, making ends meet through a combination of a beautiful face, petty theft, and a silver tongue. As William's star rises, Richard's one-time gratitude is souring, and he is sorely tempted to abandon family loyalty. So when a priceless manuscript goes missing, suspicion falls upon Richard, forcing him onto a perilous path through a bawdy and frequently brutal London. Entangled in a high-stakes game of duplicity and betrayal, which threatens not only his career and potential fortune, but also the lives of his fellow players, Richard has to call on all he has now learned from the brightest stages and the darkest alleyways of the city. To avoid the gallows, he must play the part of a lifetime. showcasing the superb storytelling skill that has won Bernard Cornwell international renown. Fools and Mortals is a richly portrayed tour de force that brings to life a vivid world of intricate stagecraft, fierce competition, and consuming ambition. And it is a whopping 371 pages. Yeah, I am almost positive I have it on Audible. I probably need to go listen to it. Okay, next up isn't going to surprise anybody. That would be Mr. Shakespeare by Karen Harper. And I don't own this yet. Yet being the key word. Historical fiction. In Mr. Shakespeare, Elizabethan beauty, Anne Whatley reveals intimate details of her dangerous, daring life and her great love, William Shakespeare. As historical records show, Anne Whatley of Temple Grafton is betrothed to Will just days before he is forced to wed the pregnant Anne Hathaway of Shottery. The clandestine Whatley Shakespeare match is a meeting of hearts and heads that no one, not even Queen Elizabeth or her spy masters, can destroy. From rural Stratford-upon-Avon to teeming London, the passionate pair struggles to stay solvent and remain safe from Elizabeth I's campaign to hunt down secret Catholics, of whom Shakespeare is rumored to be a part. Often at odds, always in love, the couple sells Will's first plays, and as he climbs to theatrical power in Elizabeth's England, they fend off fierce competition from rival London dramaticists. That is a mouthful when you're not quite enough coffee. As dramaticists, one's as treacherous as they are talented. Persecution and plague, insurrection and inferno, friends and foes, even executions of those they hold dear, bring Anne's heartrending story to life. Spanning half a century of Elizabethan and Jacobean history and sweeping from the lowest reaches of society to the royal court, this richly textured novel tells the real story of Shakespeare in love. And it is 366 pages. You know I want to read that. Yeah. Okay. And that leads us to the last day I'm going to talk about in April. And I need to pull a book. Hang on. Okay. Last thing I'm going to talk about in April is the 29th of April, which is International Astronomy Day. And I tried not to just pull general science fiction books. I tried to pull books I know, either I know personally or the darling internet told me deal very specifically with a particular part of astronomy. And that is what, according to all of my research, is very important. Not having a scientific brain, I couldn't tell you this. That is the telescope. And so the first recommendation I'm going to give you is Anathema by Neil Stephenson. There is no doubt astronomy is very important to this book. Even though I am not finished with it, as you all know. And I will tell you that all three of these recommendations are hard science fiction, and they are all chunkers. This one is just shy of 1,000 pages, and it is a brain melter. However, that is not a bad thing. Because the prose in it is just exquisite. Okay, next recommendation would be Pandora's Star by Peter F. Hamilton. This is the first book in the Commonwealth saga. This one is short in comparison. It is only 768 pages. And I will read you the back. The year is 2380. The Intersolar Commonwealth, a sphere of stars some 400 light years in diameter, contains more than 600 worlds, interconnected by a web of transport tunnels known as wormholes. At the farthest edge of the Commonwealth, astronomer Dudley Bowes observes the impossible. Over 1,000 light years away, a star vanishes. It does not go supernova, it does not collapse into a black hole, it simply disappears. Since the location is too distant to reach by wormhole, a faster-than-light starship, the Second Chance, is dispatched to learn what has occurred and whether it represents a threat. In command is Wilson Kim, a 5-time rejuvenated ex-NASA pilot whose glorious days are centuries behind him. Opposed to the mission are the Guardians of Selfhood, a cult that believes the human race is being manipulated by an alien entity they call the Starflyer. Bradley Johansson, leader of the Guardians, warns of sabotage, fearing the Starflyer means to use the starship's mission for its own ends. Pursued by a Commonwealth special agent convinced the Guardians are crazy but dangerous, Johansson flees. But the danger is not averted. Aboard the Second Chance, Kim wonders if his crew has been infiltrated. Soon enough, he will have other worries. 1,000 light years away, something truly incredible is waiting. A deadly discovery whose unleashing will threaten to destroy the Commonwealth and humanity itself. Could it be that Johansson was right? I need to read this book. I need to get my hands on it, and I need to sit down and read this book. And I believe this is going to take effect for the next one, which is even smaller than that one. That is Revelation Space by Alistair Reynolds. This is the first book in the Revelation Space series, and it is only 585 pages. And that is in mass market paperback. So let's try a non-mass market paperback edition. Comes in at 560 pages in Kindle. So I'll read you the blurb. This highly acclaimed first novel in the Revelation Space universe has redefined the space opera with staggering journey across vast gulfs of time and space to confront the very nature of reality itself. 900,000 years ago, something annihilated the Amaranthian civilization just as it was on the verge of discovering spaceflight. Now one scientist, Dan Silvestri, will stop at nothing to solve the Amaranthian riddle before ancient history repeats itself. With no other resources at his disposal, Silvestri forges a dangerous alliance with the cyborg crew of the starship Nostalgia for Infinity. But as he closes in on the secret, a killer closes in on him. Because the Amaranthian were destroyed for a reason, and if that reason is uncovered, the universe and reality itself could be irrevocably altered. Yeah, another science fiction I need to know. So, yeah. That would be the April tag. I hope you are all, firmly ensconced in spring at this point. And if not, I hope your weather soon cooperates so that your flowers are in bloom like mine are. Have you read any of these? Are you interested in any of these? Leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.